going on, trainers? Today I'm bringing you a practice match, a couple matches actually, against BAW14MAW, a former ace trainer that's in my Go Stadium lobby. So let's get into these battles. Starting off in round one, we have a mirror match with double Poliwrath, and I believe we're running the exact same moveset. So I'm going to try to go for this dynamic punch as soon as I can. I believe I get the CMP for it. So I expect to get charge moved right after. I didn't know if he was bluffing, so I didn't want to shield. He didn't shield. His Poliwrath seems to have a little better PvP IVs than mine does due to the fact that I'm already in the red and he's still in the yellow. He goes for that ice punch. I could have possibly got that dynamic punch off, but I was just trying to feint his down, and he's able to feint me down with the fast move. But we are up a shield that we are going to use right here, because even though Alolan Raichu is resistant to fighting moves, it is still extremely squishy. He brings in a Steelix. This is normally a pretty bad matchup, but I have a bunch of energy stored up, so I go for a Grass Knot, which will do super effective damage to Steelix, and try to get there as soon as I can to another one. I did get a little bit of lag, but I'm still able to get the charge move off before he can send a crunch. I get a message from JCP, but I was kind of busy, so sorry, bud. Go for a Thunder Punch to either shield bait or just do a little bit of damage, and I am able to get that shield. I decided right now that I probably didn't need to shield my Alolan Raichu, so I bring out my Steelix. I didn't know how much energy he had stored up, so I thought if this was an Earthquake, that'd be really bad for me, so I decided to shield. And then he switches out right as I was about to use a charge move to take out his Steelix. So I get off the crunch on Dusclops. It does a good little chunk of damage, but Dusclops is pretty dang tanky, so he gets off a Fire Punch. It does some pretty good damage to my Steelix, but not enough to, be super threatening at first, but they start adding up after a while. I'm not sure why he went for the Shadow Punch. Maybe it was just his first charge move that came up. I get off another crunch. Just leaving it with a smidgen of health, but able to knock it out with one more fast move. He brings a Steelix back in, gets off a crunch. Almost knocks me out, but I'm able to get to my own crunch to finish it off and take game one. So game two, I decided to switch it up a little bit just because it is practice, so I'm trying different things. I started off with Dusclops. He starts off with Lugia. This is a pretty good matchup for me. I find out a little bit later just how good and how tanky the Dusclops is. Really liking it on my team. I know I'm going to regret saying that and maybe making these videos because people are going to see my teams and are going to be able to counter me a little better. But I decided not to shield his Sky Attack, and it didn't do as much as I thought it would, so I charge up a little extra energy and go for another Shadow Punch. He lets it go through again. One more fast move, and I'm able to get to a second one. And I believe he lets his... Oh, no, he shields. And then goes for a Sky Attack. So since he shielded, I decided to shield so that I can keep my Dusclops alive and keep the switch advantage. We are tied up to one shield each. I have a charge move ready to go and just waiting to see what he brings in next. It is Poliwrath, so I go for the Shadow Punch. It's not going to hurt it that much, but it's more than what the Fire Punch would. And I make the wrong move and switch into my Steelix, but then he switches into Dusclops. So I'm not 100% sure this was the right play on either one of our sides, but we did it, so we play it out. I go for the Earthquake. hoping that he'd think it was just a crunch and not shield it. Does a little more than crunch, but not, to me, doesn't seem as energy efficient. So he gets off another fire punch. I'm in the red, but able to get to that crunch. So this should be enough to take it out. And he's going to bring back in his Steelix. Really wanted to get to a crunch, but didn't have enough. I bring in my Dusclops to get off one charge move. And then I believe I swap out into my own Poliwrath. Now with his being as weak as it is, I figured I could take one dynamic punch and still be able to get off a charge move before he gets off another one, or an unshielded one. So I decided to shield this one. It is another dynamic punch that would have definitely knocked me out. And I go for the shield bait of Ice Punch just to try to get rid of his last shield, which it works. And then I believe I go for another Ice Punch, but get a little bit of lag. So he's able to get off another charge move. It almost knocks me out, but then I'm able to get to my Ice Punch. And I believe this knocks him out for game 2. So GG's. These were some really great games. A lot of learning being done. So I start off round 3 with my Drift Blim. He starts up with Steelix. This is normally not the greatest matchup for me. I go for a Shadow Ball because I've been baiting quite a bit, so I figured go for non-bait, and he doesn't shield, so it does a pretty good chunk to Steelix. I'm not going to shield his just to save up my shields, and going for that Ominous Wind just to do as much damage to Steelix before it faints me down. He does shield that Ominous Wind, so pretty good for me. I get a shield, but I lose the switch advantage now. So I'm going to bring out my Poliwrath because it has been doing fairly well against this team. Maybe not as Dusclops, but just going to do as much as I can with it. He gets off a crunch, which isn't going to do much because it is resisted by the fighting type of Poliwrath. He brings in his Lugia, so this isn't that good of a situation for me, but the Ice Punch on Poliwrath is going to do a lot of damage to Lugia. So I switch out immediately after the charge move. He brings in his Dusclops. I believe I go for the shield bait to try to get his last shield. And it works. And I'm not going to block this because I knew I could survive one Shadow Punch. And going to charge up to the Shadow Ball. And this should be enough to knock out his Dusclops. So he brings back in his Lugia. I figured I could probably shield and get to another Shadow Ball. So try to save my Marowak as much as I can. I get to that Shadow Ball, and this will be enough to knock out his Lugia. So taking game 3, and we'll be heading into game 4. I start off Mawile. He starts off with Mawile. This is another one where I think his has just a little better PvP IVs, because even though I get CMP, I believe he's able to knock mine out first. And one thing I did notice making this video is in this match we had pretty much a 100% mirror match of Pokemon on our team, so that was kind of cool. I go for another Power Punch, and I'm not sure what happened there because it showed that it took damage, but it didn't look like it took damage. And then I see that he did shield. So I'm going to come in with my Poliwrath and hit a bubble to fan it down, have a little energy built up already. He's going to come in with Dusclops, I believe. Yep. I wasn't real sure on how this match went other than Dusclops loses if it has Feint Attack. So I'm going to switch out into my own Dusclops and go for a charge move. He has enough energy to get to one before I do, so we take that. I decide to build up a little extra energy and try to go for a self piggybacked charge move, and not able to get it because we CMP tied. So he's gonna get off his and switch out, which I'm kind of stuck at the moment, so all I could really do is go for as many charge moves as I can. So I'm able to get off another one. These shadow punches aren't doing a whole lot to Poliwrath, but they are more or less enough. I go for a quick shield bait and it works. So now I'm feeling pretty decent. I believe I shield here to avoid that, which would have knocked out my Poliwrath, and go for a dynamic punch now that he's out of shields. And this should be enough to knock out his Poliwrath, and he's going to bring back in his Dusclops. I was hoping that the Ice Punch would be enough to knock it out. I wasn't 100% sure, but it is enough. So really liking Dusclops for this cup. It's been a pretty good Pokemon. So match, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Match 5. I start off Steelix versus his Poliwrath. This is very bad for me. I didn't know how much Dynamic Punch did to Steelix, but I find out now that it really, really hurts. So I go for an Earthquake, and I do believe he shields. So at this point, I was basically just sacking my Steelix and bringing in my Cresselia, which Cresselia, I don't know, I'm not a fan of legendary Pokemon, so I don't know how I feel about it. It's super bulky, can take a lot of hits, but I don't know, it's just not for me. So he brings in his Mawile. I go for a Aurora Beam, which will be neutral damage because of the Mawile's typing. And I switch out into my Poliwrath. I figured it was not long enough to be a play rough, so I decided not to shield there and build up a little extra energy. I'm just going to go for that Ice Punch, hoping to knock out Mawile, but it's not really enough. So a couple more bubbles and I'm able to feint it down. I believe he comes back in with Poliwrath. And so I figured it was pretty close to knockout range. So go for this Ice Punch and possibly get the last shield. But he decides not to block. I switch into my Cresselia. I probably could have not shielded there and it would have been alright. But he switches into Steelix. This isn't a good situation for me because Aurora Beam doesn't do all that much to Steelix because it's neutral damage, and the Psychic or the Confusions are being resisted by Steelix, and Steelix has Crunch that really, not really hurts, but probably the most hurting thing for Cresselia. So I'm able just to get off a couple charge moves, but now his Steelix has a lot of stored up energy. So I was kind of surprised by this, that I got the CMP there. He does shield it, and I figured he had enough for Earthquake, but he baits me with the Crunch, gets one more fast move off, and I believe this is a Earthquake. So GG's, well played, excellent energy conservation on his part. So match 6. This will be the last one in the video. We had a couple more than this, but if I put them all, it would have been like a 45-minute video, and that's a little too long. I start off Dusclops. I think he started Lugia, but switched into his Mawile. So I switch into Steelix, which looking back is kind of not the greatest play because Mawile can really hurt Steelix, and the Dragon Tails are double resisted, actually 3 times resisted by Mawile. So the fast moves of Steelix aren't doing a whole lot, where the bite from Mawile are doing neutral. And of course the power punches are doing super effective. Even though they're weak, they're still adding up. He does double shield his Mawile, so I thought that was interesting. So I bring in my Poliwrath, and I'm going to go for an Ice Punch, actually, now that he brought in his Lugia, and then switch out into my Dusclops. So I was pretty close to a charge move, so I'm able to get off one quick attack and go for the charge move. So once he gets off this charge move, I decide I'll probably not use the charge move right away, build up a little bit of energy, and then use the charge move to knock it out. And without him having shields, it has to go through. I didn't know if he'd bring in his Poliwrath or Mawile, but figured I'd go for the Fire Punch just in case it was Mawile, which is able to take it out with one quick move. He brings in a Steelix. I'm extremely low, so he's able to get off a couple fast moves and knock me out. So my Poliwrath comes back in. I'm feeling really good because I have 2 shields and he has 0. So I get off my Dynamic Punch, takes him pretty much down to the red, and he gets off his charge move. I shield and then feint it down with another bubble. Well, guys, that was the video, so thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, leave some comments, tell me any kind of Pokemon that you're really liking for this cup, and we can get a discussion going with everybody, hopefully, maybe, I don't know. But I'll see y'all in the next one.